Welcome to the Oscars Cheat Sheet Miniseries. Why bother having an opinion on this year's Best Picture nominees when you can just use ours? Welcome along, everybody, to the Cold Popture podcast, and specifically to the Oscars Cheat Sheet miniseries we're doing, where we review and discuss every Best Picture nominee for the Oscars in 2022. We are joined today by myself, AJ, by my co-host, Richard, and by my actor/friend, Aaron.
I'm so glad we've kept this joke up for as many episodes as we have.
AJ famously against running jokes.
Hey,
You tried to rid the podcast of running jokes, and you gave it its best one yet.
And Richard, can you tell us what film we're going to talk about for this episode?
Today we're talking about a film called Drive My Car, which is a Japanese film directed by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. And I mean, I could tell you who it stars, but I doubt you will have heard of any of the actors in it.
There's a bit of an assumption there. How do you?
It's based on a short story from Haruki Murakami's short story collection called Men Without Women, and it also apparently takes inspiration from a few other short stories. And it's
ironic that it's based on a short story and is the longest Oscar Best Picture nominee of them all.
It's a very long movie. It's just shy of 3 hours long, and when I say just shy, it's 2 hours and 59 minutes long.
It's seconds short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's about acting and theatre and directing. So Aaron, I'm going to turn to you.
As
what's
our
this
actor
about?
slate. It's also about friendship, Aaron.
Can I just say, finally a movie nominated for an Oscar that's about the art of acting. Too many times have we been ignored by the Academy, damn it. When you say you're turning to me, Richard, do you really mean summarize the plot, please, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Alrighty, fair enough.
Drive the car that is this podcast through the synopsis.
Well, I hope my summary is as good as that joke. Okay, so let's crack into it. Basically, the main character we follow is a successful theatre actor who we are led to believe in a happy marriage with his wife Oto, who's a screenwriter in television. And Oto basically kind of creates the stories that she turns into television shows when she's having sex, basically, or after sex, she narrates them to her partner.
Her
who,
post-nut
writes them down.
clarity is
Exceptional.
The movie should be called Post-Nut Clarity.
And so basically one day the main character is meant to be flying away to a theatre festival, but his plane is grounded due to inclement weather, and he comes back to his apartment to see his wife having sex or an affair with who we presumed to be the star in her latest TV series, basically. Instead of confronting her, the lead character basically slowly slips out of the house and avoids confronting the topic until eventually, sort of a month or a couple of months later, maybe, his wife is like, "Can we talk about something tonight?" And he's like, "Yeah, totally, all good. I've just got this thing on today." And so he, instead of going and doing a thing, he just basically drives around until the very late evening in order to avoid having this confrontation. He comes home and discovers his wife has died of an aneurysm.
brain hemorrhage.
Brain hemorrhage, thank you. Also, it's probably worth mentioning at some point, given this is fairly important for the plot, that he's also been diagnosed with glaucoma in his eye, so he's like unable to see very well when he's driving. And that will potentially also become relevant later on. Anyway, his wife is dead. Cut to 2 years later. He's still sort of trying to pick up the pieces and think about, the fact that he never really confronted his wife about her cheating. The main character is invited to direct an adaptation of Uncle Vanya in
Hiroshima.
Hiroshima, thank you, at a theatre festival in Hiroshima. He goes to Hiroshima and begins casting for his play, where the actor who was sleeping with his wife auditions, who's recently fallen from grace.
Takatsuki.
Because it's not revealed at that point, but it's basically because he slept with a minor or had some sort of altercation with a minor, basically. At the same time, the lead character is also assigned a person to drive his car as a part of his contract with the theatre.
This is like an hour into the film. He's assigned someone to drive his titular car.
It's not an hour, is it?
Yeah, or maybe 50 minutes. But he does it. The title or the opening credits for this film occur just after 40 minutes in.
Yeah, it's after his wife dies, isn't it?
Yeah.
They occur. Yeah.
Yeah. The leaders of the theatre festival explained that at a prior festival, an actor had run someone over or something. And did they kill them, or am I imagining that?
The point being, we can't have someone whose career we have staken to be jeopardized in any way. So someone else has to drive your car.
It is such a funny it's a little almost like a throwaway line that is the entire plot of the film rests on the fact that he's not allowed to drive his own car, and they're just someone who used to work here ran someone over, so you understand why we can't let you drive your car.
But then also, I would argue that moment also acts as a sort of Chekhov gun in some respects
that's what I was about
for the
to
movie.
Say. Yeah.
So as weird as it sort of is, like a throwaway, hilarious thing when you kind of see it, it's also weirdly loaded as well for the latter events of the film.
And
anyway, so
also, just so you know, it's a Chekhov's gun. They also revolve the whole play around the whole movie around a play by Chekhov.
Yeah, exactly. Uncle Vanya. And so the director / lead character begins the process of casting Uncle Vanya, and it's sort of expected that he will take on the role of Uncle Vanya, the titular character in the play, but he decides instead to cast his dead wife's lover in the main role, a role that he's no doubt ill-suited for, and it's sort of never made clear, but it's sort of suggested, I think it's okay to say, that in some ways he's casting him in that role in order to humiliate him, or
to ruin him, because you can't play Uncle Vanya without coming to terms with who you are as a person, or something like that. So It's also worth noting, and this is such a strange element to the movie, that the main character is famous for this pioneering this new style of stage play where everyone speaks a different language and it's subtitled on screen, going right from West Side Story to talking about this, where every language is subtitled, to the point where he actually casts someone who only communicates through sign language. And
Korean Sign Language as well. It's not even the local sign language for them.
So very, very subtitle-y heavy film in more ways than one.
In some respects it seems like if the theater director or the director of the film knew that he was going to have an international audience, he was going to be like, good luck with this, boys. So anyway, basically, the movie proceeds with the actors rehearsing the play as the director begins to get to know his assistant director and also the driver of his car. They sort of unite over tragic backgrounds, I guess, or backstories.
She is also the age his daughter would be had she not died in 2001 as well. So there's sort of like a father-daughter kind of bond that happens between them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, her family was killed in a landslip in a sort of town a lot further north in Japan, basically. Okay. So anyway, the rehearsals continue, and then eventually there's a sort of, I guess you'd say, a confrontation scene between the lead character / director and the man who slept with his wife, where it's revealed that an unfinished story that his wife was writing was actually the the ending was relayed to her lover after they had sex, and it's sort of in some ways, I guess it doesn't really provide closure, but it sort of starts the path towards healing for the main character, and then
it's a very and then movie. You can't just say it's about two rival gangs in New York and it's essentially Romeo and Juliet.
A lot happens, and it's like, also we were talking after the movie about like where would you cut things from this movie, like although there's a lot happens in 3 hours, it's also like, man, you probably couldn't trim a hell of a lot. Anyway, they get to the end of the process of rehearsal. Everything's going particularly well and surprisingly well for the lover of the director's wife. He appears to be excelling at the role until the police arrive and arrest him for having basically beaten
a paparazzo to death.
Yeah. So he's arrested, taken away, and the director is given an ultimatum: either cancel the show or he has to take on the role of Uncle Vanya. The director decides to take a couple of days to decide, where he drives up north with his driver to the place where her hometown, where the landslide happens and her mother was killed. And at the location of where her house used to be, they sort of have a kind of cathartic moment where they both sort of come to terms. A big
Oscar scene.
Yeah. Yeah, it sort of is, but not in like a dialogue-heavy kind of a way. I mean,
like the Japanese equivalent of an American Oscar scene.
Yeah, definitely. And then the director comes back, takes on the role of Uncle Vanya, and manages to finish the season. And then we cut to 2 years later, where we see the driver of the car driving the director's car with a dog. She goes into a supermarket and is living her life. And she's also in Korea, apparently.
And also, everyone's wearing a face mask, which is maybe saying...
we talked about this after the movie, that like, is this the first like reference to the COVID-19 pandemic we've had in a Best Picture nominated film?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
I can't remember any from last year.
It wasn't nominated for Best Picture, but Borat was nominated for Oscars.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So,
two films in a row we've compared to Borat too.
That's 12 minutes into this episode, relaying this very complicated plot. And gentlemen, I don't know what you thought of this movie, but I fucking loved it. I thought it was excellent. I think that something this movie asks that I think is a beautiful sort of central question to base a movie around is like, how do you forgive someone when they're no longer around to be sorry? And I think that's such a complex idea, because the main character's struggle is essentially, he tells his wife's lover in the car the night before he gets arrested, he basically says like, we loved each other dearly, but she would often sleep with other guys, and that was just something that I had to live with, and it didn't mean she didn't love me. And so like he's aware, and that's sort of revealed to you then in the film, that her sleeping with this other guy is not a single thing. Like there's been several affairs. And in a similar way, the driver, her mother like abused her, but when she died in a landslide, she feels guilt for having not tried to save her from the house falling into the ground. And I just think it's such a beautiful idea and a beautiful kind of like story of how to like move on and live with unfulfilled things in your life without the apologies or the explanations or if you're wanting to forgive even though you can't. These are all like these beautiful, complex, yummy themes that I would love to see get nominated more, recognized more in Oscar films. And this was also a movie where like the first half, which is an hour and a half, I was like,
the length of Belfast.
Yeah, I was like, what is this movie saying? What is this movie about? And by the end of it, I was like, this is one of the best movies I've seen in ages. Like, I just thought it was great. What do you guys think?
I liked it too.
I too liked it. I guess you would say maybe I had a sort of similar experience to you, AJ, where I probably like I would say of the three of us, not to maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like maybe I'm slightly more of an art house kind of a guy.
Of the three of us, I'm more into Japanese culture than you guys.
No, I guess, yeah, I don't know. Maybe in contrast to Richard, he always jokes that I'm much more. It would be the kind of movie that I would love. So like going into it, I was like, I've heard people I know.
Pretentious.
It's true.
I'm an actor.
There's an
Slash
ad
friend.
that plays before the films. That's like, it's an ad for Trade Me, which is similar to like our version of Craigslist, I guess. And it shows you, like, oh well, this person went on Trade Me and knew what this job was about, and it's two people in an art gallery, and the woman who's done the research is like, wow, this is a great place for me, and then the guy there is like, oh, art's pretty weird, and every time we see that, I'm like, Aaron, it's us.
I have seen that commercial 1,000 times. I've seen it so many times. I'm not saying you're wrong in your assumption, Aaron, but I will point out that like we just kind of make podcasts about Marvel movies. But I love art house films as well. It's just that's not where the money is in podcasting necessarily.
Sweet. I guess I sort of just based my assumption on Richard's sort of point of view, you know, the fact that compared to him, I like art house movies more, and I'm like, AJ's a kind of Richard type.
No, absolutely. No, I'm not saying you're wrong.
I also do love art house movies, but I also like playing into the stereotype of our relationship, Aaron, that you're the pretentious arty guy. And
I hope
big
to live
dumb
up to.
idiot who likes Marvel films.
I think the best metric of how we all felt about this film is I rated it 5 stars on Letterboxd, Richard rated it 4 stars, and Aaron doesn't have a Letterboxd
And Aaron's
account
too pretentious to have a
because he
Letterboxd.
likes art house that much.
That is an amazing summation. Not even sure I know what Letterboxd is.
Exactly. You're right. You do like art house more than me and
I'm that committed to the lifestyle that I've chosen not to be actively ignorant. Yeah, I would say somewhat similar to you. I was like, I kind of went in expecting to be like, oh, this is going to be a movie that's right up my alley. And after about an hour, I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to like this movie. And I've still got 2 hours to go. But then, you know, it's sort of, as these 3-hour movies kind of tend to do, right? It sort of unfolds itself to you over time. And then you sort of hit the hour and a half mark and you're like, yeah, it's pretty good. And then you get like 2 hours and you're like, yeah, this is real good. And then you get
I
to
would
like,
die for this movie.
you get to 2 hours 45 and you're like, man, he's really done something here.
Yeah, it's such an interesting movie. I feel like this feels like it's if the Oscars were cool, this would be what would win. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's that kind of movie where it's like this is the one that provokes. This is the one that is the outlier in so many ways. Probably because it's a quote unquote foreign film as well as dealing with a whole different set of tools of storytelling. But it's so good, and it's the first movie I've seen in ages that I can truly say like was profound, I guess. I haven't seen a profound movie in a long time. And as much as I love like Dune or some of the other Oscar nominations, this felt far more like applicable to everyday life than whatever the themes of Dune might be.
Yeah, it really highlights there's a kind of a difference between, in some ways, in film, satisfying narratives versus like, you know, things that are profound, you know what I mean?
But I felt like this was both in a way. I felt very satisfied by this movie, whereas often other movies, which I would say profound, I need to reach loving them because of how like sort of confused I am by the time they're over. But I found this immediately satisfying as well. Yeah.
Did you guys notice the absence of a song in this?
No.
That like this doesn't contain the Beatles' "Drive My Car" at any point. Which
I found out that the Beatles had a song called "Drive My Car" after I found out this movie existed. So
yeah, apparently it was too difficult to get permission, and so he just didn't.
I mean, it's that the term "drive my car," I think, is not necessarily exclusively a song lyric. Like, it is also a phrase.
I think it's very, like, the fact that it's called "Drive My Car" is very much a Beatles reference, which it says the film and the story named after. But also apparently this was originally set in Busan, South Korea, but was changed due to COVID-19.
Oh. Why would that have changed it? I wonder.
I mean, I guess just like, where to, or maybe it's like it was supposed to be that it's a Japanese film, but instead of going to Hiroshima, he goes to Busan. But it's like, well, the having to cross international borders is a lot harder, and maybe less believable in the film.
So what's Drive My Car's odds of winning Best Picture?
Well, when we recorded 2 days ago, it was at the bottom of the pile, but apparently it's now second to last. Interestingly, 50 to 1 odds.
What's now last?
Nightmare Alley, which I think is how it was. Those
well, so Don't Look Up has more of a chance of winning Best Picture than Drive My Car.
Apparently, yeah.
That surprises me. If I didn't know the odds, like, and have had sort of like a finger on the pulse, I would think it would be down to Drive My Car, Power of the Dog, or like maybe like Dune, maybe for like the big, when was the last time the big movie won the Oscar, I guess. But I'm surprised that this has got such low odds. I would have thought this would be the kind of thing that they eat up.
It's certainly like a beloved film. It's one of only 6 films to win Best Picture from all 3 major US critics groups, the first foreign film or non-English language film to do so. The other 5 being Goodfellas, Schindler's List, LA Confidential, The Social Network, and The Hurt Locker.
Wow, interesting. And what else is Drive My Car nominated for?
Drive My Car is nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best International Feature Film. I'd say it's pretty comfortably going to win International Feature Film, unless somehow there's the Worst Person in the World. Norwegian film also has nominations outside of, or one nomination at least, outside of the International Feature Film category, which usually you only get one film. But yeah, I mean, when it's nominated for Picture and Director, it would be an upset. It's certainly be an upset to not win that. Yeah.
I don't know. I think like I definitely would say like Dune is still my baby, but like I kind of would like to see this win. To be honest, like I think it deserves it more than Dune maybe. But any final thoughts on Drive My Car?
I would say, just to Richard's point earlier, talking about music or the absence of music, there's a scene in the movie where there's no sound for like, I don't know, maybe a minute.
Yep.
And I just remember thinking, like, just the loudest silence I've heard in my life.
Oh my God.
I thought the movie was broken. I was like, the sound better come back in soon, or else. Like...
Yeah, because Aaron and I saw this together in like quite a big cinema, but fairly empty, and it got emptier as the movie went on as well. That because a few people walked out, but just feeling like slightly coming down with a cold, not COVID-19, coming down with a cold, and when you're very aware of like any kind of sniffle or anything like that you're making, and then the movie has these like massive periods of just complete silence, and just being like, oh my God, I'm the loudest human being in the world right now.
Wow, there we go. Any final thoughts on the film?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was amazing, and it sticks with you. Like, probably out of any of these movies I've watched, it's like the one that sort of actually really stuck with me, and I don't know, it just made me think about my relationship, and yeah.
Cool, man. That's great. Cool. All right. Well, that was our thoughts on Drive My Car. If you enjoyed this, everybody, then you should head on over to our Twitter and Instagram, where you can follow us at Cold Popture. You can also email us at coldpopturemedia@gmail.com. You can join the Discord, which there is a link to in the show notes, or if you like, you can throw us some money over at patreon.com/coldpopture. And you can email us or message us or on any of these places and tell us what you thought of Drive My Car. I really want to discuss this film more and more and more with more and more people, so keen to hear everybody's thoughts if they've seen it. And yeah, join us next time on the cheat sheet, the Oscars cheat sheet, where we're going to be talking about
well, let's continue the subtitle theme and talk about Coda.
Coda.